If you think AI and legal and dispute resolution practice is still something that's coming someday, this episode is going to change your mind. 18 months ago, I introduced you to a small startup called Describe that was using AI to make legal research more accessible. Fast forward to today, and Describe is now one of Anthropic's launch partners for Claude for Legal. That's right, the same Claude that so many legal and dispute resolution professionals are already using can now tap directly into Describe's legal research engine. Today, I'm joined by co-founders Cara Peterson and Richard DiBona to talk about what this means, not just for legal research, but for the future of practice itself. If you've been wondering where AI is really headed for lawyers, mediators, and dispute resolution professionals, this is the episode you don't want to miss. Welcome to the Practice Playbook podcast, your go-to resource for legal professionals, mediators, and entrepreneurial experts building modern, profitable, and purpose-driven businesses. I'm your host, Susan Guthrie, attorney, mediator, and #1 best-selling author with over 35 years of experience. I'm a former chair of the ABA section of dispute resolution, and I've helped thousands of professionals build practices they love through my books, coaching, and training programs. Each week, I'll bring you real-world strategies, mindset shifts, and behind-the-scenes insights to help you grow with clarity, confidence, and impact. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Practice Playbook podcast, where I explore the ideas, strategies, technology, and innovations that help professionals intentionally build practices designed for the future. Today's episode is one I've been looking forward to for quite some time, because if you've heard me speak about AI over the past year, and you probably have, you've probably heard me mention Describe. I've recommended it in keynote presentations, webinars, coaching sessions, and right here on the podcast because I believe it's one of the most exciting examples of how AI can solve real problems for legal and dispute resolution professionals. But today's conversation isn't really about legal research. It's about what happens when a company starts with a simple mission, listens to its users, continues to innovate, and becomes one of the biggest developments in legal AI. Since Cara Peterson first joined me back in December of 2024, Describe has expanded far beyond an AI-powered legal research platform. The company has earned national recognition. It's added powerful new capabilities for legal and dispute resolution professionals. And most recently, it became one of Anthropic's launch partners for Claude for Legal. If you're wondering why that's such a big deal, well, you're about to find out. Joining me today are Describe co-founders Cara Peterson and Richard DiBona. Together, they've built a platform that's helping redefine legal research, lowering barriers to technology, expanding access to justice, and giving legal professionals powerful new ways to work. In this conversation, we explore how Describe evolved from startup to industry leader, why its partnership with Anthropic matters, what AI-powered legal workflows look like today, and where all of this is headed next. So whether you're already using AI every day or you're just beginning to explore what's possible, I think you're going to come away with a much clearer picture of where professional practice is headed. And be sure to check the show notes because I've created a free companion guide, the Modern Legal AI Starter Guide, to help you begin putting these ideas into practice. Well, I don't think I've been so excited to record an episode in quite some time. And I've had some fantastic episodes lately. But today, when I opened up the screen to see you, Cara, and then your husband, your partner in Describe is here as well, Richard, I'm over the moon for this episode. So thank you both so much for being here.
Oh, we're so excited. I've been really looking forward to this too.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I get excited to be able to talk with people who are as immersed in this world where technology has has merged into the legal practice, but also the A to J aspect of that. Well, my listeners know, Kara, you were on back in December of 24. So it's really
Wow.
been a year and a half, which in some ways feels like a really long time. And in other ways feels like 5 minutes, right? Like
Absolutely. Yeah. And it feels like it's about 10,000 years ago, and it feels like it quite literally was yesterday. I'm like, "Oh, I just saw Susan." And it's like, "Well, actually, no, it was 18 months ago."
18
Yeah.
months ago. And I've watched on LinkedIn and we've had, conversations in DMs and emails about what's happened. Describe has gone from what we talked about in that episode, which I was very excited about at the time. My listeners will remember because I still talk about Describe. But Describe has gone first off from being Describe.ai to being Describe.com, right? You've moved into
Yes.
the general.com world.
That's
But
right.
at the time, you were a legal research engine. And in this very short, in the world of tech, a year and a half is an incredibly compressed amount of time for what you were then to where you are today and what we're going to talk about today. And the accolades that have been raining down on your heads in that year and a half. I mean, we'll have them in the show notes, everyone. But at the time, you had just been named one of ABA's Legal Women of Tech.
Yeah.
Since then, your award shelf has exploded because of what you've been able to do. So let's dive in and talk about that because I know this is very much a joint venture with the two of you. So let's talk about first, what has happened. Let's talk about some of the capabilities that you've added over this year and a half, and then we'll end or we'll get to the big news of what's happened in the last couple of months and where you're going. But you've added a lot of capabilities beyond legal research since we last spoke.
Right. And it's been amazing. Like as you were saying, it's a long time and a short time. And AI, the whole AI universe we're living in now has changed timelines so much, right? It's like, Einstein is spinning in his grave, so to speak, trying to figure out what the relativity of time here. But it's there's so much you can do now in a compressed fashion, and Rich can speak to that from the technical perspective. But AI, we're almost like the poster child for what AI enables in terms of building something. And it just so happens to be legal tech, right? But you are able to build faster, better, stronger with smaller teams, more nimbly. So yeah, so that's definitely what we've been doing. And so we've taken our foundation, which as you say is legal research, which is super interesting and complicated, but once you have sort of solved that data problem, you can build all kinds of really cool tools on top of it. So Rich can speak to it more than I can, but we've basically taken that large trove of data and built tools on top of it that people need to do their daily work in the law. And that has been super exciting. And we keep discovering new things.
And if I could say one other thing, like we built all this cool stuff, but it's also a textbook example when I think about it as you were talking, that it's when you do things kind of the right way, like we built on trust and it's all the things
Mhm.
Cara did and we put the customer before our own bottom line and we didn't charge for a long time and we don't try to gouge anybody and we're super transparent and we listen to the customers. And I think that's as equal for the success as the tool itself.
Well, I think that's what absolutely because I mean, I remember when you first started and it was a 100% free tool. There was no cost whatsoever to using Describe. And I remember people with that first episode saying that can't be true. There's a hook here. There's something they're selling our data. They're doing that. I'm like, no, that's not who they are. They are actually building something to democratize access to legal research. I said, and then when you started to add full transparency, as you just said, when you started to add some very important capabilities, there were costs associated with that. Bravo to you. No one should do anything for free forever. But they were incredibly, and still are, incredibly reasonable, especially in the world of legal tech, which, by the way, to all of my colleagues who know this, is not usually that reasonably priced.
No, and it's funny because one of the things, so Rich and I are both from outside legal, right? So neither of us are attorneys. So when we approached this problem, like we were looking at it with fresh eyes, and the pricing in legal tech is really strange. Right? I mean, when you compare it to other types of software, like in any normal software world, what we charge, so we can talk more about pricing and things like that if we want to, but what we charge for access to Describe is a normal price that you would pay for software. For some kind of other type of software, like, I don't know, Canva or whatever it is that you're using, something just normal. It's only seems super affordable and cheap and all that when you compare it to other legal tech tools. So legal tech like has this very weird expectation that everything has to cost, similarly to your mortgage.
Yeah.
Which is not, it doesn't make
but
sense.
true.
Yeah. And I mean, I get there's historical reasons and, we could argue about why and all that. But the truth is that AI really is changing that narrative completely. And in terms of what the sort of justification for that kind of pricing is going to get harder and harder for companies to justify, I think.
Oh, I think it already has.
It already has, yeah.
And you've actually played a part in that, which we'll talk about as we're talking about some of your more recent capabilities. But
right.
I think that there has been a bit of a mindset in the legal practice as we've built up a work model based upon the billable hour that and the more years you have under your belt, the bigger that hour costs, the more that you can charge for it, and the longer you can spend on doing something, the more it's going to cost someone. So I personally have always thought, not to name some of the legal research competitors and all, but some of those big names were not pricing based on the value they gave, although it was valuable at the time, but now you can get it almost anywhere. But they were pricing based upon that concept of lawyers are expensive, so their tech should be as well.
Right, exactly. And the human power needed that you needed, the literal human brains that you needed to parse this data and deal with it was, was expensive.
Yeah, well, that's actually a really good point. Yeah, now you can just put in what are the most recent cases in Connecticut, in Fairfield County, that are specifically on alimony for marriages over 20 years. I mean, you can get that granular and just ramble on into the input, and you're going to get usable, information that's on point without you don't remember doing legal research. Maybe what we had to use the hashtags, and we had to use or an or, and you had to. I mean,
yes,
I'm dating myself.
Good old Boolean search.
Yes, yes. So let's talk about some of those capabilities because they will be very interesting to my listeners. I've mentioned them over time, and I talk about them in a lot of my programs. My colleagues who are listening, the lawyers, the dispute resolution professionals, many of them are still in that space of concern about AI because of its hallucination issues, its inaccuracies, the citation problems, et cetera. You've got that covered now.
Yeah, Rich, you can speak to the product, but before he does, I will say one thing. With AI, always it's good to always have a little bit of healthy skepticism, of course, right? And that's part of it. You need to be aware. You never want to be in the point where you're just like, oh, I trust everything, but that's also difficult because if you're saying I trust it, but I have to double check anything, we get that that's hard. So trust the right tools. There are good tools and bad tools.
Lawyers are skeptics by nature. So,
absolutely.
In my programs, I tell them, it's like back when I was teaching them how to use Zoom. Hard to remember that was what I was doing just 5 years ago during the pandemic. But I was teaching people how to use Zoom. And I remember saying, all the time. It's not if your tech will fail you, it's when your tech will fail you. So be prepared. Now I tell them, just think of the hallucination or the inaccuracy as an Easter egg hunt. And it's
Yeah.
in there,
That's
and you're going to
good.
go find it.
That
Yeah.
makes it fun. Gamify
That's
it.
a good point.
Exactly. Gamify it. Exactly. There's another tech aspect. So, Richard, explain to us what the tech does.
Yeah, so at first we started out where we were just bringing in case law and we were making it easy to read. So we summarized it and made it searchable in these cool ways that weren't really possible before. So you could search by a concept instead of by the keywords like you talked about. And so that was the tool that we talked about a minute ago as being free. And so we put that out there for everybody. Then we started getting feedback from customers. It's great that you're showing results, but we need to know if they're good law or bad law. So then we go and we did that and we built our own AI. We call it Citator. I mean, because, it's kind of like our own version of a Shepardizer.
Yeah.
But what we did was we used AI to be the editors and evaluate all the way cases treat other cases instead of the human editors, because that's something you could do now. So we went through every single opinion and said, how do they treat each other? And, it took months and months and huge bills, but of OpenAI, but,
I was just
we
going to
ended up with
say,
this
a
full,
lot of
yeah,
credits got
yeah.
used.
You could see this little plaque right there that I'm pointing at is our award from OpenAI for using so many tokens. We were like YouTubers on OpenAI.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I keep waiting for Sam to show up and cook us dinner or something, but
which
so
yeah.
far we haven't seen him.
Yeah, so we did that, like, we did the good law, bad law thing, and then people were like, "Oh, why don't you do statutes and regulations?" And so we did that, and so it's just and then more recently, we moved into, like, a deep research thing, which we call Describe LM, which is
Mhm.
where it just goes through and it asks you clarifying questions and walks you through a research path. And instead of just an instant reply, it takes, maybe 7 or 10 minutes because it's really going out across all of our sources and finding stuff and doing all the work. And then the most recent thing we added before what you said we'll talk about in a minute
The big
is
drum
this
roll.
yeah, is like this advanced brief checker so that because the problems are all with the hallucinated things, but we went a little bit beyond just checking citations and we went to whether you're using them correctly because we had all this data so we can tell now. It's like, are you quoting the original case in the way other people are using it? Are you quoting it in a way that is supported? Are you paraphrasing it and losing some meaning, which seems to be more common than you might think?
Oh, no, it's very common.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
very.
so you could run your own brief through or your opposing brief through and kind of as a sanity check. But that's what we've those are the tools that up until May of this year were our bread and butter.
Well, and I mean, that's quite a suite, right? Think about, because as I was saying, my colleagues and the practitioners that I speak to, those are their pain points. And so one of the things that I've always loved, and as I've watched this journey, is exactly what you just said, Rich, is you listened to your users. That's one of the beauties of the speed at which this tech is moving, but where founders like you are actually listening to the users and in real time, and I mean real time, because everything's so speedy. Look how quickly all of those tools came out,
Mhm.
even though you had to use all those tokens. I love that you have an
Uh,
award for it. We were
I
talking
Oh
know.
about
my
all the
gosh,
awards.
so funny.
Yeah, but you're able to turn those things around and take the platform that you had created and add all of these different modalities to it so that it's even more helpful to the user. And I will note, that you have added a cost now to
Mhm.
using those additional capabilities. But again, that cost is incredibly reasonable considering what competitors cost. And what I would say, frankly, is a more facile use than most of your competitors or any of your competitors that I used in my years. What you've created works better. and a
Yeah.
little
Oh,
more,
Oh,
that's
w
nice.
yeah.
from my perspective of using it. And I told you, my listeners know I've been putting the finishing touches on my book, and thank you for Describe, because
Ah,
it helped me. Gosh darn it, those footnotes are good. My footnotes are
awesome.
solid
And
because of you
nobody likes
guys.
to write footnotes, so
Oh
that's
God, I
good.
hate
Like,
footnotes. I
oh,
hate
footnotes are
them.
the worst.
Footnotes from my perspective are a nightmare because when they appear in the middle of judicial opinions and you have to ignore them as because 'cause they're not part of the judge's writing in a lot of cases, so
Right. Right. Although sometimes if it's all we've got, we're going to cite that
yeah,
footnote.
exactly.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. It's so
Yeah.
funny. But you're right. And like listening to the user, I mean, it sounds like the most obvious thing in the world, right? And I think Rich and I had this weird, it almost sounds like it's a disadvantage, but I think it's served us as an advantage of not knowing how these tools really worked in the old world, right? Because neither of us are attorneys, right? So the closest I had is I was, the marketing director at Suffolk Law School, for years, love that place. So it was adjacent, but I never had to do this work. I never had to look inside Westlaw or figure out Lexis or any of that. So we didn't know
Lucky
how that
you.
worked. So I know I feel very grateful. But so we approached it from a very different perspective of sort of like a data problem, right? So Rich is a big data engineer, obviously, and I'm just sort of
Yeah.
a marketing person, whatever. So maybe some of the things we didn't have these presumptions about how it was supposed to work. So we just kind of built it differently, which you can do with AI. And we're so literal, like it may sound like a tagline, like we, listen to our customer, but it's every night. Rich and I both have a time at night where we sit there and answer emails ourselves. Like Rich literally answers all of the queries that come in himself, tech questions that come in. I answer all the user questions that are, related. And as we scale, which is happening very fast, can we do that forever? I don't know, but we try. And people will put in requests like, oh, I'm a patent attorney. I'd really love to see, patent work. So Rich, what did you just add so that it would work for that
Like
person?
PTAB and PTAB Kate decisions and all that, and so, yeah, so if it's out there and if it's public domain data, we could pull it in and make it searchable, so that's what
Well,
we
and
try to
think
do.
about that one user who reached out, who's an
Yeah,
IP attorney who
Yeah.
wanted, patent attorney who wanted that information. If you're listening, my friend, guess what? It's out there
It's
now,
there.
right? So if you have
Exactly.
that kind of query, reach out and tell them. But, so you added all that sparkle and accessibility and support for your users, and that
Mhm.
got you some attention. In May of this year, you had a really big announcement and a big exciting thing happen, which is what prompted me. I have to tell you, I was so ecstatic when I saw it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, they're big time. It's like we were talking earlier, it's like your Oprah moment. So, drum roll, please, the announcement.
Well, first of all, your Oprah moment is so badass. I was jumping around when I saw that. I was so excited. So a separate conversation, but you are on fire. Yeah. So our big news is that we were an official launch collaborator with Anthropic for the legal industry, which was an amazing gift. I mean, first of all, who doesn't love Anthropic? Who doesn't love Claude? But to be part of that cohort was huge. And there was a moment, I'll be a little vulnerable here. Yeah, I was at Moritz College of Law doing a roundtable on AI and legal profession, and I was on my way home. I was at the airport. I think I was in Baltimore on a layover in Baltimore, and there was an announcer, or they were doing a webinar. It was Mark Pike, right? Rich, I think, was doing the webinar
yeah.
about what they were doing, and I was just listening to it and watching it, and I saw Describe's name come up on his slide as he was talking about, the solutions. And I started crying in the middle of the airport. And I am not a crier, like literally, maybe if I stub my toe or something. But I was just so incredibly moved and proud. And like after all these years of work to be like, this is such an incredibly important validation point. And not just for us as a company, and I'll explain what it means, but also for the whole sort of idea that we can use AI to actually move the needle on access to justice and actually move the needle on how these services are provided to people and to how we support the profession. Because, boy, if there was ever an area that needed disruption. This is it, right? We have too many people, we have too many problems, we can't get enough help. The people who are on the other side providing the services are burned out and stressed out and having, bad quality of life, work-life balance. Like, let's fix this. So it just felt really good. And of course, I was incredibly proud of Rich for everything he built. Yeah, that was my moment.
It reminds me of maybe like a songwriter who's like, walking through or a singer or turns on the car radio or, and hears their song playing. At one point, I saw as I was going into Claude, because you're right, who doesn't love Claude? Claude, my husband calls Claude my boyfriend. He's jealous because at night I'm with my face into the computer with Claude.
He's my boyfriend too.
Oh, he's a big cheater, that Claude.
Oh my
He's getting
gosh,
around.
Claude. Jeez.
But I was in there connecting my Claude for Legal, and I went in, and I think your plugin was like, of all of the different hundreds of different things you could plug in, you were like 4 or something. Like, think about the millions of people that are on Claude. You were, I think, number 4, and you've moved around, but you're in the top 10 all the time these days.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, and it is, and of course, it's Anthropic made a really good decision to, like, I think, not that they're asking me, but my opinion is that to go in and to very purposely lean into tools that are affordable, quality tools that are affordable was really smart, because when we talk about access to justice, right? So just so people understand, there was this launch where Anthropic, went into the vertical for legal. And what they did is they said, okay, here are 22 MCPs, which are basically connectors, that you can use inside Claude to connect to outside things. For us, it was connecting to our data. So it's like you can use Claude, right, for your legal work, which is great. But now you can plug it into a verified data source so that while you're checking things, it's actually checking authoritative data or authoritative resources rather than just, things from Reddit, and Claude themselves, Anthropic themselves will say, do that. Like, if you're going to use it for legal, get one of the plugins. There's us, there's the Free Law Project, there's, if you happen to already have a Westlaw subscription, you can plug into that. So there's multiple options. But it's like, it's in their interest to say, if we're going to serve a broader market, we can't just say, oh yeah, okay, just use Westlaw, because that doesn't really solve the problem, right? I mean, it's great, and if you happen to have Westlaw, good for you. You're already doing well. But if you don't, they can't push people to these super expensive tools. So having options that people can afford is huge. So it was super smart of them to be like, we're going to lean into this. So access to justice doesn't only mean free tools or for people who are, unfortunately for them, living below the poverty line where they need to be, accessing legal aid. But there are people who just, don't want, like we were saying before, don't want to spend half of their income, on a legal problem. So it's just such a smart move for them to lean into that, I think. So good job, guys.
I mean, I think it's the future. We were talking about this, and this is an untapped market for my colleagues out there. Is exactly the market you're talking about. The people who cannot afford legal support at all are helped by these tools, and we're going to move the needle for them. But there is a massive market of people who can afford reasonably priced legal assistance, not the $60,000 divorce, not the $20,000 contract, not the norms that are happening in the world that we have created for legal services. It's one of the reasons why I always say why lawyers are the butt of every joke out there, is because we're not actually liked very much, right? People make jokes about us because we're sharks and we're overpriced and we are opaquely billing them by the hour, right? They're not joking about us because they like us, folks.
No, and none of you like it either. Like, I mean, no, but I have not. I have yet to meet an attorney, and obviously we know many now, or people in the judiciary, judges, everybody involved who's like, this system is working great. Like, everybody's like, this needs to be changed. Everybody.
Let's keep doing what we're doing. It's awesome. No, I shared with you, I was a divorce attorney for 26 years before I became a divorce mediator. Marginally happier as a divorce mediator than I certainly was as a divorce litigator, but it's not a great way to make a living. The
No.
burnout, the alcoholism, the lack of quality work-life balance, all of the above is rapidly shifting. And what you have created is going to and is playing a massive part of that, because
Yeah.
having tools available to the practitioner, that's what I think I really want my listeners to hear, because they are the practitioners. I want them to understand that this now tool plugin that they have right now through Claude, that they can use Claude, which many of them are, dipping their toes in there and getting that done. But now they have access to Describe and your database and all of that information. My favorite part is when you do that, Claude goes, I'm going to use Describe to go and do blah, 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 blah. You know how it gives you the
Yeah.
little, there you are, you're on there. It's going over to Describe. It lets you know it's using it, right? So you're pulling together work product for your clients in this incredibly streamlined fashion that is concrete and has information in it that is coming from your database that is helpful. And then the practitioner still has that obligation to use their legal, knowledge and education and expertise and training to do the final pass and review of everything that comes out of this combined product, I'll call it. That's the future, where you can serve that huge portion of folks who don't want to pay $60,000 for a divorce, but would be willing to pay $10,000 for the divorce, or $5,000 for assistance in reviewing the pleadings or doing those things. So there's so much opportunity here. I want people to hear that there's so much opportunity here. So there's so much fear in the legal world around AI still.
One thing that we added, we were talking about features, and it relates to the Claude, and actually helps the situation you're talking about, is because we created all of this data, we were able to also do all these calculations. Again, it just took a long time, but it's worth it. So when you type in an example about any legal issue, it won't just return the ones that match the words the most, it returns the most authoritative cases about that. So if you're, for example, in Massachusetts and you're typing in about like employment discrimination or retaliation, it'll bring up Verdragger first or whatever, like the case that people
I love that
use.
you're citing cases.
Yeah, I know.
We've
It's
gotten very
funny.
nerdy.
But yeah, so we sort them, we service them by authority, so that way you kinda it increases the reliability too, and you know that these are the cases that people are using for this particular legal issue.
Let's point out those are the cases that probably got missed in our old way of doing legal research, right? When you were just putting in keywords, you were
Yeah,
getting those keywords brought back. Now you're putting in concepts and ideas. And it's an entirely different way of doing that legal research, which also empowers the practitioner. Right? That's something that, most people see this all as a tool, but a lot of practitioners, who are not using it all that much, they still see it as like super Google, like a retrieval
Right. Right.
tool. I'm still telling people in my programs, it is not Google. Do not treat it
yeah,
like Google. It's a
Yeah.
different thing. But that gives you as a practitioner even more power, because you, again, with your legal knowledge, your expertise and training, can state what the issue is. And the tool can help you find as you just said, Rich, the cases that aren't necessarily just the right words,
that's
but are the right
exactly right.
concepts. So different.
And it changed so much when you turn off that authority search versus on versus off, like, literally the cases you get back change so much because those main cases may not mention those words as much. But, and they were kinda like people lawyers, you could tell us how it worked, but it seems to me like a lot of it was, like, tribal knowledge of what cases you cite for
It
what
was.
thing.
For
And,
sure.
and that was one of the things that maybe, was worth paying us for back in the old days. It's not worth paying us for anymore, because
But
AI
what
can.
is worth paying you though is your judgment, right? And your like and the idea that, if you're spending less time on some of that arcane sort of minutia, and I'm not saying it's not important, it's super important, but like you can actually work with the clients, right? Like you can
Yes.
actually work with the strategy or the higher level thinking. And maybe I shouldn't say this to, a bunch of attorneys, but also turning things away from the recourse of the courts, right? Is
Yes.
like the number one. I mean, that's to me like the biggest, I think that's the biggest green field. And I know I don't have to convince you of this, Susan, but alternate paths for resolution with AI is like, I think that's the best because I mean, the court system is the least efficient way to solve any problem that you could possibly just imagine, right?
There
I mean,
there's no positive aspect to taking something through the court system. I mean, it will
no,
get
it's
resolved ultimately. I guess that's the positive. But in no way is that going to be a good path to resolution.
absolutely. So I think, I mean, that's got to be, I think, the most exciting place is like, and who knows? Like, this is really thinking in the future. But like, if you could have these things that really do help you see where a reasonable middle ground is, or something that takes into just so many parameters for how this thing could be resolved. Like, does it help the clients get to a better under if they're on very separate sides, like in a divorce or something? Like, does it help people get to a middle ground faster in a less stressful way? And then you have to think probably being an alternative, dispute resolution professional is maybe less stressful than being a divorce attorney. I don't know, you can
Thank
imagine,
God.
right? So
Yes.
I can imagine, right? So I can imagine, like, does it just change the whole way we even approach these kind of disputes over our time? That's what I hope.
Well, I think it already is. For the practitioners who are really curious and open-minded and exploring, as a dispute resolution professional, as a mediator, option
Mhm.
generation is one of our most valuable tools in a session. Well, who's
Right.
really good at generating options, right? We sit there with our little tiny brains and can come up with 10 options. Then we ask Claude to do it, and it comes up with 50 options. And then it can also help you sort through those and see which options work well together. And if you put in the objectives of the parties, which ones are like the best ones to consider to get. I mean, and then working with the tools, I can tell you this having done it. There's something about working with the tools with the parties who, as you said, may be very polarized, but when they're focused on what's coming out of the tool, they're more open-minded to hearing what it is and thinking about it and asking the next question to get more information, right? It almost becomes like a new pathway for them to think about things in a different way.
Right. That's interesting because it feels like maybe even though we know there's plenty of issues with bias in AI, it's a slightly different type of bias. So maybe people feel it's a little bit somewhat of a neutral voice or view of the situation.
Well, or that they can see possibilities coming out of not another person in the room, right? It's not,
Right.
Susan who may have her own input. And I agree with you, whole different conversation, but bias in these tools
Right.
is probably the biggest threat to, or it will be the biggest cause of litigation. I will say that. I think we're already
Yeah.
seeing that, right? A
Yep.
lot of
Yep.
litigation going on around the inherent bias in these tools, but different
Mhm.
conversation. So, and I don't want to lose sight because we've been talking also just my listeners know I get very excited about this, but all you have this wonderful partnership with Anthropic who
Mhm.
came out in the last few months with just so many exciting new things that they were doing. And now all the friends, OpenAI is kicking it up a notch and they've got new things coming out. I just started using Codex. Love it. All these
Oh,
different things
good.
that are happening out here in the world. I've also been talking about the fact I've started using Perplexity quite a bit because it's got capabilities and its research is next level. And you have some other exciting possibilities for Describe. Can we share any of those with my listeners?
The way we're thinking and, customer first, right? Like, how do people work? People work where they work, right? And so, what we hope is that our tool can follow you where you work and support you wherever you are. So, the goal is to have our data layer, our verified data system sort of be at your fingertips wherever you need. So, just for example, when you buy it, you can buy just the Claude subscription with us if you want. But if you get the whole platform, you get the platform and the connector. Like, and so the idea is the same environment will happen in OpenAI. So you can use in ChatGPT, you can use the same exact tools so that you would have that data layer there Same with Perplexity, we're looking at Google, we're looking at all of them, because really what we've discovered as we've been testing is that this data is our tool is very portable across the different platforms. And we think that's how people want to work. I mean, I know all day long I'm switching between ChatGPT and Claude and asking it to check each other's work sometimes. Like, wow, Claude said it this way. What do you think about that? And I wonder if they ever get annoyed with each other, but we'll have their back wherever they're working. That's the idea. That's the goal.
Yeah, so the way we've kind of figured it out, or the way we're thinking about it, is that we've curated all this data, we've analyzed all this data, we've linked all this data, like what we've been talking about with all the citations and legal issues and knowledge graphs and everything else, to the point where we have like 300 million rows of data that's just there and ready to use. And so what we can do is put that into Claude, put that into OpenAI, put that into Perplexity, wherever, Gemini, Copilot, and they become the brain. So it's like
Mhm.
they figure out what data they need. They ask us for the data, and then they do the reasoning on it and put back the answer. And
Mhm.
we're only in this position because of that we became a data company instead of like we weren't a chatbot. We were never like
Yeah,
a chatbot. And
we're
so
never a rapper. Yeah.
yeah, so I think if your thing just calls a LLM to get an answer, then it doesn't really work as well as a plugin for another thing, because then it's like you're calling your thing to call another thing, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And we're able to do it because and I hate to use jargon like this, but an AI native company. Like, so we don't have the same kind of weird proprietary sort of nature around our data. Like, understandably, companies who've spent, hundreds of millions of dollars and years and years, like walling off their data, like doesn't want to do this, right? Because their data is their bread and butter, right? So, but for us, right? So it's different. So we're very much taking like a sort of new age, not new age, but a new era approach to this, where it's more the accessibility to the data that is the real golden ticket, we think, and we think that this is the way of the future. People are not going to want to be in walled gardens for long.
That reminds me of a good point and relates to what you asked before earlier, Susan, is we're now getting emails from customers saying, "Oh, we want to use your data to do this in Claude Code," and it's something we didn't even think about, and it's like, "Oh, that's
Mhm.
a good idea." Like, they wanna go through a list of
Oh,
different
hey, there's an
statutes and
idea.
look
Hey,
at
Yeah.
the
yeah.
things, or yeah, so we're able to build on customer ideas in this environment too,
Mhm.
because obviously we can't think of every idea, but the customers who are using the data come up with some really good ones, and then we
Mhm.
implement it so everybody can use it.
Yeah, kind of
Well, and
co-creation.
Yeah.
And thankfully, you have the brain that can then take the ideas, the asks from the the users and actually turn them into, usable tools within the tool. This idea of being portable amongst all the different top uses, especially,
Mhm.
I'm just going to say it out loud, Copilot could really use the help. So if you could go help them out, lawyers, for some reason, well, not for some reason, right? Most law firms have Microsoft Suite, right? So their attorneys have Copilot and they hate it. I've
Yeah.
never ever consulted with a firm where I had an attorney go, that Copilot kills it for me. I love Copilot.
Yeah. But everybody's so in the Microsoft environment. Like that's a huge, yeah. So if anyone is out there that works at Microsoft, give us a call.
Right here, folks. You heard it here first. Your solution to one of your big problems in the legal world is right here on the screen, everybody. Yeah, give them a call. We'll have their contact information in the show notes. Just check it out or reach out on LinkedIn. So
That's right.
I am so excited to see where you have come, but also where you are going. And, we may have to make this like an every 6 month thing where you guys just come back on and I'm like, Cara and Rich are back and we're going to talk about what Describe's doing now,
I love it.
because things are moving so quickly. I'm so excited for you. I knew the very first time I heard what you were doing, I just was so excited about the possibilities, but where you have gone with it never entered my tiny human brain. I'm sure AI might have been able to, see this trajectory, but all I see is more wonderful things for Describe and for the legal world that you aid, and more importantly, the people in the world who need the support of what this profession is actually supposed to be doing, which is
That's
helping
great.
people, right?
Yeah.
That and you are the kernel that's making all of that possible. So from
Thank
me,
you.
a practitioner, thank you.
And we'd be lying if we said that we can plan out a roadmap longer than just a couple months without
Right.
how fast everything's changing.
Yeah, the compressed timeline is insane.
It's beyond, and I mean, and I think if I can just say something to your listeners too directly, is every practitioner is also a business person, right? You have to be, right? When you, especially in a lot of the smaller firms, you're a small business owner. That's like a whole different world, right? And you don't necessarily get trained on that in law school, right? About how to run a business. So what's really cool out there right now is the chance to build things and do things yourself that wasn't possible. So, if anyone out there has an idea for a way they're going to change business or things they want to use AI to do, like, this is the time. And it's never too late. I mean, I became an entrepreneur in my 50s. Like, what? Right? Like, everything is possible right now. So if you have an idea, like, go for it. And especially for the women in AI and the women in tech, there are some really great networks out there and stuff. So don't be afraid to pursue your own thoughts and dreams as a small business owner yourself, because there's so much possible right now. Like, if you can dream it, you can do it. Really, I really believe it. It's a lot of work, but you can do
But
it.
it's exciting.
Yeah,
It's energizing.
yeah,
I am waking up every day, can't wait to get back to what I'm working on and building things, the productivity and the ability to do things, because I've been open-minded to seeing where this technology can support me and take me. I've done things that I just never would have thought I would have done. And think about, I think about the
yeah,
two of you with no legal background tackling the the massive industry that legal research, right? Massive industry cornered by titans, right? And the two of you come along and like, yeah, we're going to take that on. And look what you've done.
I think
it's
one key
crazy.
though is we never tried to take them on, and we've never said that we're taking them on. We're like playing in this separate green field that they don't really care about.
Well, I think it's more, I mean, there's very much the legal profession and the adjacent fields that support it in many ways have always been, but that's the way we do it mentality. We do what we do, we continue to do it. We're going to keep our head down and do it because that's what's been working for us. And we are not in that world anymore. We are
Mm-mm.
that does not work, especially with this compressed timeline that we've been talking about. I mean, look what you guys have done from a year and a half ago, which was amazing. A year and a half ago, what you had created a year and a half ago was amazing, and where
Yeah,
you've come to today is mind blowing.
thank you.
My listeners know I'm not a technician. I'm not a tech person. Sometimes I have a hard time, like, clearing my disk on my computer, right? I'm not that person, but I am
Yeah,
a
we all
very
do.
practical user of technology to get
Yeah,
done what I need to do. I'm their person to come to if they need practical uses of these things. What you have created is just, it's chef's kiss. I'm telling you, it's
thank you.
just, it's wonderful. So I really do. 6 months from now, I'm going to have you guys back on. We're going to talk about what's happened in those 6 months.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Interim listeners, if you have ideas for them for Describe, if you're a Describe user, first off, if you're not a Describe user, you haven't been listening to me, go use Describe. You'll be able to get it through Claude right now. Shortly, I am 100% sure, through OpenAI, Perplexity, Gemini, all of our little friends out there who are helping us. Also, if you have questions or comments on this episode, be sure to write in and mention them, because I'll just Go and do what you said they said you can do. Ask them questions. I'll go to Cara and Richard and ask questions, and we'll talk about it here on the podcast. I want to thank both of you for taking this time with me. I truly mean it. This was the episode I've been looking forward to. Having you back on, Cara, and meeting you, Rich, is really a delight because I admire both of you and what you've done, and I'm really excited to see where you go from here. So
thank you. We appreciate your support so much. You're awesome. So thank you so much.
We do it. It's what keeps us going.
You've accomplished so much, but you know what? I know 6 months from now, we're going to be like, oh, that was great 6 months ago, but where are you today?
Probably right.
Yeah. And that's the supercharge. That's the exciting opportunity of AI. It's not an unlimited potential, but it unleashes our potential. I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
I agree.
It won't do any of it on its own. But when you partner with it, as you said, Cara, when you collaborate with it, when it becomes your thinking partner, oh my goodness, the things we can do.
Absolutely.
The things we can do. And you two are a shining example. So again, thank you so much. And I can't wait to see you in 6 months.
Thank you.
What a conversation. I could have talked with them all day. But as we wrap up, here are a few of my biggest takeaways. First, AI is no longer just another productivity tool. It's becoming part of the infrastructure of professional practice. The firms that learn to build thoughtful AI workflows today will have a significant advantage tomorrow. Second, I loved Cara's reminder that healthy skepticism is a strength. We should absolutely verify AI outputs, but verification is very different from avoidance. The professionals who thrive will be the ones who learn to use these tools responsibly. Third, Rich shared something that I think is incredibly important. AI isn't simply making legal research faster. It's changing how research happens by surfacing concepts, authority, and connections that traditional keyword searches often miss. And finally, one message came through loud and clear. Technology should never replace professional judgment. It should free us to spend more time using it. That's where the real value lies, and that's where the future of professional practice is heading. If today's conversation inspired you to start exploring what's possible, do not stop here, because I've created a free companion resource, the Modern Legal AI Starter Guide, to help you get started with Claude and Describe, along with practical prompts and a simple workflow you can be using immediately. And if you're a member of my Practice Accelerator, be sure to download this month's premium companion resource where I share my complete AI research workflow and how I combine Claude, Describe, ChatGPT, Perplexity, and other AI tools to build better work product in less time. Thank you, as always, for joining me here on the Practice Playbook podcast. If you want more information about the accelerator or anything else that I offer, my books, my trainings, etc., visit my website, susaneguthrie.com. And until next time, remember, don't let your practice evolve by default. You want to build it intentionally, and I'm here to help you. Thanks so much for listening to the Practice Playbook podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love it if you'd take a moment to leave a review, follow the show, or share it with a colleague who's ready to build the practice of their dreams. If you want more support and tools like the ones you heard today, join the waitlist for the Practice Accelerator, my brand new subscription program packed with resources to help you grow smarter. You can find the link in the show notes or visit susaneguthrie.com to learn more. Until next time, stay focused, stay intentional, and remember, success starts with the right playbook.